really excited about today. We're cracking open a book that, well, it sparked a lot of debate and, frankly, changed a lot of perspectives on money. We're talking about Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Ah, yes, definitely one of the most talked about personal finance books out there.
It really is, and it's not just about budgets or saving pennies, is it? It's more fundamental. It aims to shift how you think about, well, everything related to money, work, wealth.
Absolutely. It starts with his own story, which is quite compelling.
Right, the two dads. He talks about growing up with these very contrasting father figures. You have his poor dad, that's his biological father, highly educated, followed the traditional advice.
Yeah.
Get good grades, find a secure job, steady income.
The path many of us are taught.
Exactly. And then there's his rich dad, his best friend's father, less formal education apparently, but he taught Kiyosaki completely different lessons about how money really operates. And the huge takeaway from that contrast, the core idea, is that wealth isn't just about how much you earn. That's maybe even secondary. It's, and I'm quoting roughly here, how much you keep and how hard that money works for you.
That really is the crux of it. And it sets the stage for, well, challenging pretty much all the conventional financial advice most people receive. So in this deep dive, we're not just going to summarize, we'll unpack those lessons, some of which are pretty surprising. They go against the grain. It's kind of a shortcut in a way to grasp some fundamental financial ideas, but maybe through a different lens.
Well put. So our mission today, for you listening, is to distill this down. We're aiming for, say, 5 core lessons.
Sounds good.
5 core lessons and the sort of real-world insights from Kiyosaki's philosophy. The goal is to give you some, genuinely actionable stuff to think about for your own financial life.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first big lesson. Kiyosaki states, quite bluntly, the rich don't work for money.
That always stops people in their tracks, doesn't it?
It does, because most of us are raised thinking about job security, trading our time for a salary. That's the goal. But the insight here isn't just like a literal statement. It's about a huge mindset shift.
Totally.
Moving from being an employee, thinking about the next paycheck, to becoming an owner, someone building a system that generates income for you. It's seeing your time differently. Not just something to sell hour by hour, but as leverage.
Right. And Kiyosaki points out that while, most people focus on getting a bigger salary, the rich focus on something else entirely. They focus on building or buying assets, things that generate income passively.
Passively, that's the key word there.
Yeah. It's not necessarily about working harder in the traditional sense. It's about setting up income streams. Things like rental properties, maybe, dividend-paying stocks, or even building a business that can run without you being there 24/7.
So automating operations, things like that.
Exactly. Designing systems. Could be clear procedures for a small business or an online sales funnel that works automatically. It's like building a machine that makes money without your constant direct effort.
Okay, so that focus on assets naturally leads into the second big lesson, which is Kiyosaki's really famous, maybe even infamous definition of assets versus liabilities.
Ah, yes. This one definitely sparks discussion.
For him, it's super simple. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out, period.
And that simplicity is powerful, but it leads to some, let's say, provocative conclusions.
Right. Like his take on your own home, he often argues that for most people, their house, which they think is their biggest asset, is actually a liability.
Which sounds completely backwards to most homeowners, right? Especially since Kiyosaki himself made a lot of money in real estate.
So how does that work?
Well, his logic is, if your house primarily generates expenses, mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, all that stuff, without bringing in income, like rent.
Then it's taking money out of your pocket every month.
It's exactly. Making it a liability in his definition. Now, the point isn't necessarily everyone sell your house immediately.
No.
It's more about making you really think.
Question whether the things you call assets are actually building your wealth or just, well, draining your cash flow. He wants you to prioritize acquiring things that generate income stocks, bonds, rental properties, businesses, over accumulating stuff that just costs you money.
It's a perspective shift, really.
Yeah.
But just knowing the definition isn't enough, is it? Kiyosaki argues you need a whole different kind of education, which brings us nicely to lesson number 3, Financial education is way more important than just a traditional college degree.
Yeah, he's not necessarily anti-school across the board, but he's very critical of how traditional education often prepares people.
How so?
He argues it mainly trains people to be good employees, to follow instructions, work for a paycheck. It doesn't typically teach you how to be financially savvy, how to be an entrepreneur, or an investor.
So what kind of education is he talking about? He really emphasizes financial literacy, like truly understanding how to read financial statements, a balance sheet, an income statement, knowing how cash flow works, and critically, understanding things like accounting and the tax system, not just theoretically, but how to use them strategically.
Strategically, to minimize expenses, maybe.
Exactly. Minimize taxes legally, maximize those passive income streams we talked about. It's about understanding the rules of the money game. He believes this practical financial intelligence is your single most powerful asset.
It's a skill set that, yeah, you probably don't get in a standard curriculum.
Rarely.
Yeah.
Yet it's fundamental for building actual wealth, according to him.
That makes sense. The tools might be there, but you need to know how to use them. And this ties right into his fourth lesson, which I find really interesting. Work to learn, don't just work to earn.
Yes. This is about prioritizing skill acquisition over immediate salary, especially early on.
He talks about his own experience, right? Working for his rich dad, sometimes for free.
He did. Not for the money, but specifically to learn, to absorb how businesses actually run, how deals are made, how money flows, what skills really count in the real world.
What kind of skills?
He stresses things like sales, marketing, communication, negotiation, understanding legal structures, accounting, investing. He advises people to sometimes take jobs, even lower-paying ones, specifically to gain experience in these key areas.
So it kind of flips the whole idea of job security around.
Completely.
Yeah.
Instead of looking for a secure job, which might not exist forever anyway, he suggests building your own internal security, your own skills, your own knowledge. If you know how to sell, how to manage finances, how to find deals, you have something valuable that transcends any single employer. You can generate income yourself.
You build a toolkit.
Exactly. A versatile financial toolkit that empowers you, makes you less dependent. I actually did something similar early in my career, took a commission-only sales job, paid almost nothing up front.
Really?
Yeah, but the skills I learned about selling, about resilience, invaluable when I eventually started my own thing. It directly applies.
That's a perfect illustration. Okay, so that brings us to the fifth, and maybe the most psychological lesson from Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
The emotions.
Yes. Control your emotions. Don't let fear and greed drive your financial decisions.
This is huge in his view. He observes that most people's financial lives are ruled by two powerful emotions. Fear, the fear of not having enough money, of being broke, and greed, the desire for more, chasing riches quickly.
And he says these are the emotions that trap people.
Precisely. They trap people in what he famously calls the rat race, working harder and harder just to pay bills, maybe buying more liabilities when they get a raise, driven by that fear or that desire for more stuff.
So it's not just about knowing you shouldn't be fearful or greedy.
No, it's deeper. The real challenge Kiyosaki highlights is recognizing how these primal emotions are actively pushing your buttons, making you chase hot stock tips or panic sell during a downturn or buy things you can't afford to keep up appearances.
Keeping people stuck.
Yeah, the insight is to become aware of those triggers in yourself, to learn to pause, step back, analyze the situation logically, make strategic choices based on your financial education, not on a gut reaction of fear or greed.
It's about developing discipline then.
Financial discipline, emotional discipline. It allows you to see opportunity where others might only see risk, and to be cautious when everyone else is getting greedy.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot to chew on from one book. So let's try and wrap this up. What are the core takeaways for you listening to this deep dive? First, there's that fundamental mindset shift, right? Moving beyond just earning a paycheck to actively building and acquiring assets that work for you.
Absolutely crucial.
Second, understanding that Kiyosaki definition may be challenging of assets versus liabilities, really asking yourself, does this put money in my pocket or take it out?
That honest assessment is key.
Third, the huge importance he places on practical financial education, literacy. Understanding the language of money, beyond just what you might learn in traditional schooling.
Your most powerful tool.
Fourth, the idea of working to learn valuable skills sales, marketing, finance, not just working solely for the highest immediate paycheck, building that internal toolkit.
Long-term thinking.
And fifth, mastering those emotions, recognizing how fear and greed can mess with your financial decisions and learning to make choices based on logic and strategy instead.
Controlling the internal game.
So at the end of the day, the big message from Kiyosaki seems pretty clear.
Yeah, I think so. Wealth isn't just about getting lucky or even just about how much you earn. It's profoundly about your mindset towards money. It's about the financial habits you build, the strategic choices you make consistently over time. Really, your mindset itself then can be your greatest asset, or frankly, your biggest liability.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. Your mindset as the ultimate asset or liability. It really is a continuous journey, this stuff. So, as you think about everything we've unpacked from Rich Dad Poor Dad today, here's something to maybe mull over on your own. Which single insight, which one piece of Kiyosaki's philosophy that we talked about resonates the most with you right now? Which one might be the very first thing you choose to apply or even just rethink in your own financial life? Keep exploring, keep learning. Thanks so much for joining us on the deep dive.